Okay, hey guys, so we're back today with episode 4 of our review series for Reign of the Warlock. So I just wanted to take a time out from gameplay and show you guys, there's this nice little website someone put together called d2runes.io. Highly recommend it, very well put together. So he has an option here where you can explore runewords, and when you click just new runewords, it filters out all the runewords that we are aware of so far. So the first one's Authority. You can make it in a 3-socketed body armor using Hell, Shawl, and Brawl. And Authority gives a 10% chance to cast level 15 Miasma Chain on striking, a 2% chance to cast level 10 Psychic Ward when struck, so that's pretty cool, even though it's a low chance. That's very useful. Plus 2 to all Warlock skills, 20% FHR, and 40 to 60% enhanced damage, 30% fire resist, and minus 15 to requirements. So all in all, that's really great value for the runes you're investing. Very common runes, very easy to get. You know, you play a couple rounds of Nightmare Countess and you'll get these no problem. So very cool. Level 29 required, so that's one to look out for when you're playing the new Warlock class for sure. So then you have Helms and a new Helm rune word called Coven, like a witch coven. So 5% chance to cast level 10 Sigil Liturgy when struck. Again, low chance, but still always very cool when you have skill procs on items. Then 1 to all skills, 20% faster cast rate, so that's really good for casters. Actually, I could see really all the caster classes benefit from that, but more so something like a barbarian, right? It could boost the speed at which you cast things like battle orders. If you find a nice +3 battle order helm, or even if you want to make like a Warcry barb or something like that, I could see that being used. So 30 to 50% enhanced defense, 26 to 40% better chance of getting magical item, 1 to 5 life after each kill, 30% fire resist, and 10 to vitality. So, you know, again, overall, really great mods there for the investment. You know, sure, it's got an Istrin, but Ists, they're not that hard to find. You know, one day I found like 2 just running Hell Cows, so they're not too hard to come across. Ist, Raw, Yo. So Raw and Yo runes are both very common, as you guys know. Alright, going down here, next we have a shield rune word called Vigilance. It only takes Dull Gall. The stats on Vigilance are not that exciting until you consider that this can be made on like Necromancer heads or like the new tomes that they introduced for the Warlock. So it takes a Dull Gall, so the highest investment there being Gull Rune. It gives a 5% chance to cast level 10 Ring of Fire when struck, 10% faster run walk, 30% block bonus, and then 20 to 40 to both life and mana. 25 to 35 all resists, and then 75 to 100% enhanced defense, 7 to replenish life from the Dull Rune, and 5% to maximum poison resist from the Gull. So again, overall, maybe not the most exciting stats, but you know, it's always nice to have a little bit to maximum poison resist when you're running Hell, and it is nice to get you know, those resists and replenish life and things like that inside of those shields and tomes. So I wouldn't recommend making this one in like a regular shield. You know, there's better uniques and runewords that outclass this for sure. Even like a storm shield, I would say you're better off running. But if you're wanting to go for those plus skills inside of like a Necro head or like a Warlock tome, then this will enhance that you know, white item into something more interesting and more worth wearing. So not bad overall. I'm glad they brought that. Personally, instead of the block chance, I would have made it like 30% faster cast rate, and that would have made this a lot more exciting as a prospect. But you know, those are choices that the game developers, the highly paid game developers of Blizzard, are choosing to make. I don't know what to tell you guys. So I'm not always a fan of the stats and things that are chosen. I find a lot of items in Diablo 2 Resurrected still continue to be very underpowered, and as a result underutilized. I'm thinking about things like the Wind rune word, right, where you have to invest a high rune but the stats are just abysmal. I've never seen anyone run a wind runeword in all my years playing online. It just doesn't happen, right? So you start to understand if something is never made, that's because it's useless, right? And the game player determines that. Why Blizzard keeps things like that on and refuses to just like say tweak the stats a little bit and make them more worth your while, I really don't know. Like, you know, wind could be improved by the added mod of maybe indestructible, and then all of a sudden that like 160 enhanced damage has some more meaningful value, right, for the raid at the real base. Anyway, I digress. Let's continue on here. Ritual. This one is for daggers, as you guys can see. Again, it's very easy to get runes, at least the first two, Shal, very common. Then you have an investment of an Ohm rune. So Ohms are not too bad. Again, if you're running things like, you know, Hell Bal, Hell Cows, things like that, even Hell Travancore, you're going to eventually come across an Ohm. And if not, you can cube gulls up to Vexes and then cube 2 Vexes up to an Ohm, you know, if you really can't find one or you're doing like a solo self-found. So let's see the stats on Ritual here. So 30% chance to cast level 1 Sigil, okay. Sorry, 13% chance to cast level 1 Sigil Death when struck. I don't know why I stopped there, so there's different Sigil types. So not too bad, right? Level 1 is not too exciting, but 13% chance is pretty high, so I think you'd be proccing this pretty often, especially seeing as this is a dagger, so you're probably in melee combat getting hit. Then 40% increased attack speed. Okay, very nice. 250 to 320 enhanced damage. So that's pretty high. I could see even like a druid or something, like, you know, or like a daggerzon benefiting from this. What else here? 200 to 260% bonus to attack rating. So that's really high. That's a huge buff. And coming from just one item, so you know, you could possibly wear something like the Angelic Amulet and Rings for like a huge buff to AR, right? You'd be hitting things even with like a level 1 Zeal or whatever skill you're using. Okay, let's continue on here. 150 to 250 damage to demons, so that's pretty hefty as well. When you stack that with the natural enhanced damage, you're looking at, well, close to like almost 600 damage on the top end against demons, so not bad. 7% life steal per hit, 3 to 5 life after each kill, and then you have this mod of monsters RIP, so slain monsters rest in peace. Always a welcome mod when you know, for things like the Fallen, if you don't want them constantly getting back up, it's nice to have that mod on a melee character sometimes. As long as you're not summoning, and as long as you're not like a Horker Barb that's using item find, because that slain monsters rest in peace will actually prevent you from casting like another skill on the body, like say Corpse Explosion or Item Find or things like that. So okay, going down here for the last rune word, it's also a dagger, so we get 2 new dagger rune words. Very interesting. I do wish they would have made the dagger rune words 2 runes instead of 3, only because there's a lot of daggers that are drop, like bases, that only have like the 2 socket spawn possible, right? You know, the ones that are a little shorter in the inventory, they only take up 2 slots. So those are all null and void and excluded from these new rune words. So again, I question design choices like that by Blizzard, because you would think they would want to create the greatest number of variables and possibilities, and when you do things like limit certain dagger types, like at least 2 that I can think of, from being able to make these rune words, all of a sudden it just makes it less exciting, especially when you're finding those bases. They have no intrinsic value, right? So anyway, I'll stop ranting for a minute here and read you guys the stats. So it takes a Thal, a Zod, and an Ist. Ist is negligible, Zod is a fairly high investment, so let's hope this is worthwhile. So 69 level to hold and use this item. So it's called Void. Like I said, Thalzad Ist, it's indestructible, $2 skills, 40% faster cast rate. It adds 3 to 14 cold damage from the Thal rune. This one's pretty huge, actually 10 to 15 to magic skill damage. So between the all skills, the cast rate, and the plus the magic skill damage, I could see like certain necromancers like Bone Necros benefiting from this. I could see like, man, I really wish they put necromancer skills on daggers, but anyway, like this would be sweet if you found a base that's like +3 to like bone spear, +3 to bone spirit, right? It'd be so cool. Anyway, 1 to Abyss, 8 to 12 to all attributes. Okay, whatever, that's negligible. It's still nice to have, but it's negligible. And then 30% chance of getting magic item. Again, fairly marginal stat there, but still always welcome. And then level 4 decryptify, 35 charges. So that's pretty cool. That alone might be worth making this item. It has certain use cases, like for example, if you're using it on a hammered in, or even let's say like a sorceress, sometimes it's nice to be able to like decrypt Baal or something when you're fighting him, right? A lot of people don't know this, but like decrypted Baal is very handicapped. Basically, he's like extremely slow, attacks slowly, moves slowly, casts slowly. So it's kind of a huge one to have for casters when you're fighting Baal. He also uses things like blood mana a lot less frequently when he's decrypted, so I could even see sorceresses making use of this item. Even though they can't benefit from the magic skill damage, between the all skills faster cast and the decryptify charges, I could see them benefiting, especially if they wanted to run like an infinity on the mercenary instead of a reaper's toll for the decrypt, right? It frees up that slot and gives you a lot of potential like damage in the form of the infinity, right, which has the conviction aura on it. So now as a sorceress, you're getting that benefit without having to give up the cryptify when you're versing Baal, right? So very cool. You could use the cryptify in cows and things like that. I would save it really for endgame bosses that are more difficult. Like say I would use it in like Uber Tristram, or I would use it against Hellbow, or maybe even like Hell Travancoles. Hell, Diablo, things like that if you're struggling. But I wouldn't use them maybe somewhere like cows. I take it back because really you only get the 35 charges. And unless you're using it on the Cow King and that's it, like you'd have to go back to town to repair those charges pretty often or keep like the Ort Root on hand. So I would say save it for bosses. That's my advice. But enjoy. Play the game the way you want, guys. So that's it. That's a wrap on all these new rune words. I think I'm going to leave it there for this video. I don't want it to go too long. And we'll see you in video number 5.